Hey guys, it's OneHpTom back at it again with another video. Welcome to OneHpTom Reviews, where I will share my thoughts on games that I play. These are completely subjective, and just what I experienced myself. This first review is on Sonic Frontiers, if you couldn't already tell. After 100%ing the game twice, I'm ready to share my thoughts on the game. I would like to start off with a huge spoiler warning for the story of Sonic Frontiers. I'll be making comments on the gameplay later and story references, so please click off the video now if you do not want to be spoiled. It has been almost a month since the game's been out, but I don't want backlash for spoilers. So, I'm going to break down my review in a good, bad, and should you play it sections. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So what's so good about Sonic Frontiers? Well, let me start off by saying that the Sonic music carries in this game like it always does. Every Sonic game has great music. They all do. But in this game, the island exploration, the cyberspace levels, the boss fights, and even the fishing all have a different feel to them, and there's a great balance that really makes it feel like it's not overbearing and it's not overdone. It just fits well, and it makes you feel like relaxed, excited, adventurous. It's awesome. Love it. So for Tomoyo Ohtani to raise the bar in this game without Crush 40, color me impressed. I still listen to these banger tracks as well as the island themes, because even then the island themes, they change. So like the first time you hear the island theme, you progress in the story a little bit, the theme changes a little bit. It's really subtle and it's really nice, because the first time I noticed that was on Chaos Island. I mean, yes, it's a third island, but still, and you're most likely already halfway through the game. But it wasn't until I was just standing around like, wow, the music's different. It's just so sweet and so subtle. So I never really felt bored of it. It never really annoyed me. I thought it was a major plus for the game. So second up, they finally listened to the fans and they gave us back the supersonic boss fights. Like, it's not just the final boss, it was like 4 times too. It was awesome. The boss fights are one of the most exhilarating parts about this game. After a few games without Supersonic saving the day, i.e. Sonic Forces, Sonic Lost World, it is refreshing to be able to use Supersonic again this many times. And they nailed it for the most part. You really feel like the threat is unbeatable without being supersonic. Like, you literally can't do anything as normal Sonic. Like, you need it, you know. And that's what we want. That's what we're looking for. So this combined with the combat really makes it worth it. And speaking of the combat, there's only so much that Sonic can do in terms of combat, you may think, but Sonic Team and Sega really gave a plethora of options and combos to use. Albeit it is a little bare bones at first, it does get more fun after the fact. And there's even a way to cheat the system, which I did on my second playthrough. I even kind of did it on my my first playthrough, all off screen. But you can unlock one of the abilities once you get, I think, 10 ability points or skill points or whatever. And when you do tricks in the air, you gain skill points as well. So once you do that, there's a spring on Kronos Island that you can just kind of farm and just go up and down and just keep doing tricks endlessly until you get as many skill points as you need to unlock the skill tree, which gives you a plethora of options early on, which really helps if you're under leveled or don't have enough power or defense for the first boss fight. Really helps out. I highly recommend it if you really want to know, you know. So there are some negatives about the combat that I will touch on later in the video during the bad section, but overall the combat was pretty fun. There was a lot of combinations that Sonic could do that you didn't think was initially possible, and it was just a great experience. So let's move on to the exploration. Exploration, it's fun and interesting. There are many obstacles that give you that Sonic classic feel, and the new mechanic, the side loop, is a welcomed addition to how to approach different map revealing challenges, which you have to do those challenges to unlock the map. It's really fun. And some worlds you can do like the whole map from the start. Other sections you can only do like those sections like after some story progression, but we'll touch on that later. There's some more things I'd like to mention here, which are the story and the fishing. So the basis of the story is Sonic and the friends get sucked into cyberspace. Sonic breaks out. He traverses 5 islands to save his friends and uncovers what happens to the Ancients, aka the Coco. The mysterious voice in the sky is the main villain, and Sonic becomes corrupted by the cyberspace. However, his friends save him so he can save the day. Well, those are spoilers, but you've been warned. Cyberspace is pretty much like Origin in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, where all the memories of Sonic and company are stored. So that's why the cyberspace levels are all old Sonic courses redesigned for Frontiers. Now, at least that's the excuse that they give. In the end, because that's also the true final boss, Sonic and friends defeat the last Titan, and I mean mostly just Sonic. Sonic defeats the last Titan, and Sage controls it to go with Sonic to defeat the end. Because that's what the boss name is. I don't get it, but okay. I don't know why they went with that name, but that's whatever. We get a beautiful shot of Sonic beaming across space and shooting through the end. It's awesome. I love that shot. Sonic and Sega, or Sonic and Sage, my bad. Sage, Sega, it's close. I don't know. They couldn't think of a better name. Like, let's just go with a name that like is close to our company name, I guess. Whatever. Sonic and Sage notice it is not enough, and Sage sacrifices herself to save Sonic and the world. This is like a callback to like Shadow in Sonic Adventure 2, and I loved it. This type of sacrifice was foreshadowed long before, though. Like, I was getting the feeling like in chapter, or like Island 2, Island 3, like the way she was eavesdropping on all the conversations, it really felt like, oh yeah, like she's gonna do something like this later on, and that's exactly where the story took it. I mean, once you just like see it enough in like other media, you kind of like get it, you know, like you just kind of know. But hey, I mean, it's a pleasant surprise for people who don't really know that kind of stuff. I thought it was really cool though that the end references all your previous adventures in her speech, and it leads me to the other references I wanted to talk about. So the story incorporates different references from across the series of Sonic, whether it is Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, Sonic Unleashed, Sonic 06, or Sonic Lost World. Okay, I might be reaching with the Sonic 06 thing, but it's kind of similar in the way that it happens. It may even be like Sonic Heroes in all reality. So, but even Sonic 3 and Knuckles was mentioned, with Angel Island and Sonic Knuckles story when we were saving Knuckles. So Tails talking about Dark Gaia from Sonic Unleashed, fantastic stuff. I was more hung up on the fact that he was saying like previous references from different games than I was about the actual story. I mean, the actual story wasn't bad. It wasn't the best story, but it wasn't bad, especially for what, a children's game. So like Sonic telling Tails that he is the reason they beat the Deadly Six along with other enemies, I was losing my mind. Like I said earlier, Knuckles talking about Angel Island, Sonic and his friends saving him in a Sonic 06 type circle, but without the kissing scene. Which, Sonic was corrupted, right? His friends gathered around him and they sucked themselves back up into cyberspace, and Sonic was freed of the corruption. And I was like, that's crazy. That really reminded me of Sonic 06 when Sonic is quote-unquote dead, and which he was dead, and then they gathered the Chaos Emeralds and they saved him with a kiss from Elise, which I'm glad they don't do that anymore, because that was bad. That was bad. I will say that was bad. I would also like to throw in Sonic Pinball. I mean, there was a pinball section minigame, and it really gave me the vibes of, oh, we're playing Sonic Pinball, because there was like a Sonic Pinball in Sonic Adventure, and like that was really fun to play. So as a callback to putting that into Sonic Adventure, I really feel like they just brought it back for that. So I really liked it. Whether or not the pinball was good was a different thing, but I'll touch on that later as well. Another great addition was Sage. Sage's character was, like, in my opinion, like, really well written, at least in the English version. I've heard some things about the Japanese translation, how it doesn't really technically line up with how the English translates it, but she's a computer program, right? And I really thought she was like Eggman's best assistant. I mean, it kind of reminded me how like Tails is to Sonic. Like, even better than Cubot and Orbot, which I get they were comic relief and had good moments, but they weren't that funny in retrospect, just clumsy. But I really loved the relationship that Eggman and Sage had, and like how she developed as a character. Like, even though you could foreshadow it, I get, like I said that earlier, but like she was really good. Like, I liked her character a lot, and I loved how she was reasoning with Sonic and Tails and even Knuckles in like some capacity. Like, I liked the dynamic that was going on. So she was learning stuff, even though she's like, oh, I do calculations and everything, and it really gave her like more, I guess, like emotion, which, you know, that's a nice thing. So I really do like the fact that they're tying everything together, though, and entice new fans to play older games or retain the current fan base who are longtime Sonic fans. I mean, there's something for everybody in this game, 100%. And the last thing I want to talk about is how amazing the fishing was. The mechanics were great, the presentation was great. Like I mentioned earlier, the music was fantastic. Really, like, the chill lo-fi playlist that you would find on YouTube, they literally put it in this Sonic game. It's crazy. The diversity of the things you could catch was awesome too. Like, you could catch a hammerhead shark, you could catch a spring, you could catch a goal sign, you could catch so many things, like actual like Japanese fish, or like all this other stuff. It was great. And let's not forget about Big the Cat. The fishing spot was awesome to relax at after getting frustrated with the cyberspace levels. Like, overall, a 10 out of 10 performance from the fishing. Loved it. There wasn't any faults with it. You even caught a different thing every time, and it never duplicated until everything else was caught, which was perfect. That's exactly how I want my fishing, especially when there's a completion percentage for the fishing. Fantastic. Now, getting enough coins was hard, but thanks to Starfall events, it was easy to get plenty of purple fishing tokens to fish with, especially since the cost of entry increases from like 1 coin to 8 coins by the last level. Now for the bad. So with all this good, what can possibly be bad about Sonic Frontiers? Well, let me start off with the controls. The default button mapping felt very off in this game at first. The boost was on the right trigger, and all that was said was that Sonic had all of his abilities from previous games. So with the button mapping being different, pressing certain commands to do certain actions didn't produce those same results. So, like, and they don't really tell you how to do these moves or anything either. So when assuming how to do a light dash, like I was playing Sonic Adventure 2 a couple of days before, I thought, oh well, I'll just press like the square or the B button or whatever to do it, and it wouldn't work. Or was circle, like on PlayStation, and it wouldn't work. It took me 5 hours to finally figure it out. It was L3. You had to press L3. They never said push in L3. They just showed a picture of the like the left stick and never said L3. It literally just said L, and I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? So how unnatural it was to get used to that. But overall, like, once you go further in the game, it does get better. But at first, it's like, why? Like, what'd they do to Sonic? Why'd they butcher the control system? But overall, it makes sense in the end once you get used to it. But I'm also going to mention mechanics in this section as well. The boosting was awful. Sonic's boost shouldn't be stopped by enemies. There was multiple times where I'm in a cyberspace level and I'm just like, oh, I'll just boost right through the guy. And you dead stop, get hit, lose rings, and you're like, that's not the Sonic boost that I know and I've loved throughout multiple games. Like, ever since even like the Wii. So it's like, I don't understand what they were thinking with that. I mean, like I said before, you get used to it, and you have to do things a certain way, but like initially when you're like, oh, Sonic has all of his abilities, you're like, oh, well, that shouldn't be an issue. But yet it still was an issue. Like his like it's always been able to crush enemies in his path. I just don't get why, like, until you get your speed upgraded, it feels like his boost does anything. And even then, once you hit like 99 speed, like Sonic still doesn't feel like super fast. Like he does get uncontrollable at times, but it still doesn't feel like that great. And the fact that you even have to like upgrade your speed when you're supposed to be the fastest thing alive in the first place. But I'm going to touch on the upgrading mechanic later. Okay. And another busted mechanic was the sidestep. Oh my gosh. When you do cyberspace level 1-2 in the Sky Sanctuary, this one gave me like an aneurysm. And that's why it took me, like my first stream was probably like 5-6 hours, because every time I tried doing the sidestep, I did that stage probably like 50 times in that one stream. You can go over on twitch.tv/OneHpTom if you want to go see it. And like I was getting so mad because every time I kept sidestepping, it would not keep me like on the path to keep my momentum. It would literally, I would sidestep and I would hit something on like the side poking out, blocking the path, and it wasn't like a perfect sidestep like it should be. I don't know how they messed that up, but they did, and it just make my blood boil. It was just like, this is not what Sonic should do. But once I like threw out that whole, oh well, Sonic shouldn't be like, Sonic is this way and is always going to be this way, then I started to enjoy it a little bit more. But I mean, that frustration was still in the back of my mind, and I held on to it for this review. So, and speaking of momentum, right, I was losing my momentum at random points or getting too much momentum when there wasn't a balance. Input lag also plagues this game where I'm trying to jump over the lava in Chaos Island, and instead I run right into the lava because boosting then jumping before a downward incline doesn't work properly. You have to jump super early in advance to even make sure you can clear a certain gap. This also happened on an obstacle on Ares Island on my way to the Yellow Chaos Emerald. This has always been this way for many Sonic games, like I said, and it really bothered me at first. And another big thing is the forced camera locking in some parts. This was mostly apparent after I did my second playthrough. I was so used to it that I didn't really think about it, but like my first playthrough, it did bother me, but I forgot about it, so I'm glad I played it a second time and I remembered, because the camera forces a perspective on a certain enemy while you're trying to run around them or in an obstacle, and you can't move in the direction because of the forced camera. You have to backtrack completely so that forced camera angle can be reverted to a open perspective where you can control the camera. It was absolutely wild that I ran into that. I remember that very clearly in Chaos Island, and the only reason why I even remembered to put it in this video is because of RGT85's comment on it in his after show live stream, which is on YouTube, like right after the Spawn cast. Shout out to Spawn Wave as well. So really good reviewers, you know, look up to them. But anyway, this also goes for boss fights. The second boss fight, when you're saving Knuckles, you save Knuckles, Wyvern is his name. When you're boosting in the air as Supersonic, yeah, the music's great, the atmosphere is great, everything's cool, right? But the forced perspective, he shoots 8 missiles at you, and I understand why they made the parrying like just holding the bumpers, because if you just hold it, then you don't have to really know when to parry. But at first, I never really played it that way, right? I didn't do it that way at first because I didn't, like, they don't tell you that. This whole section right now is just hilarious because it's like they don't tell you that the parrying is just holding the bumpers unless you get the parrying drill in the training in between cyberspace and the open world, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? So like, I thought the game was more interesting if you had to actually time it correctly. So I'm glad I like was playing it kind of like Ghost of Tsushima, where it's like you have to parry a certain way and not just hold the bumpers to parry. Like after I did that the second playthrough, like when I like knew it going in, it was just like, this is just too easy. Which, I mean, I understand it's a children's game, so it makes sense. I mean, you have a lot more fans watching the movies and knowing who Sonic is, so it makes sense to like take pressure off the player. But there's also another enemy in Ares Island where he pops out of the ground, he flies up in the air, and he puts like these balloons, and it forces the perspective. So if you're trying to run away from him, you literally could just fall off the map if you are close to the edge, or run into another enemy, or run into an obstacle, because you cannot see, because it's forcing you to look at Sonic's face. And it's just like, bro, please, can you stop? But the parry, I understand it, makes sense. I wish it was the way I initially thought it was, because it would make the boss even more challenging. But now that I know that, it's like the boss is easier, which kind of sucks. I would rather a longer boss fight where it's exciting and the tension is rising. Oh, am I gonna beat it this time or not? Instead of it being, oh, I can beat it within 5 seconds or 5 minutes every time. It's not really a boss fight for me. Now, I never really cared that much about mechanics in Sonic Forces before, but this is my first review, so I'm really critical of the Sonic Frontiers mechanics, because I mean, if I ever went back and played Sonic Forces, I would probably rip that game to pieces. Even though at the time I was like, it's not that bad, but it's not that good. And that's exactly what we got going on here. So another thing that was bad was the mini games, and 2 specific mini games I'm going to call out because I'm very, very frustrated with how that works. The SOS backup mini game with Knuckles and the Coco, and the Sonic pinball one at Chaos Island right before you drain the lava from the volcano. It was so frustrating. Well, not like drain the lava from the volcano, but like, I mean, essentially that's what he did though. You had to put the lava in the water to get to the third boss. Anyway, it was frustrating, to say the least. So I'm going to start off with the SOS backup minigame. The spikes increase their speed with the more Coco you collected. So in my mind, when you first get this thing, they don't say that. Well, I mean, they kind of mention it. They may have been clear about it, but it was frustrating. They're punishing you if you work smarter instead of working harder. So you're thinking, one shot, one go. I'm going to grab every single Coco. I'm going to time it right. Sonic's supposed to be fast. But the problem is they don't let you boost. And they limit another mechanic, which I forget, but it was so frustrating, right? I'm just trying to progress the game and go through the story. I'm not going to change the difficulty. I'm just trying to get the thing done, right? You should not make this so the spikes by Knuckles go so insanely fast if I have all 16 Coco that I can't even get under it. There should be some type of gap, and I'm sure some people probably figured it out. For me, it was so frustrating because it was just like, I'm not going to waste my time trying to do it when you're trying to tell me I have to play the game in a certain way, when you're trying to say, hey, this is a open zone game where you can explore stuff. Oh man, I was so mad. But shouldn't make it so the player would be punished for being efficient. That's all I'm trying to say. You shouldn't punish the player for that. And that brings me to the pinball. I didn't mind the high score you had to achieve. It was like a 5 million score to get for pinball. With how much I've played Sonic Frontiers, you could beat the game in less than 15 hours. I'm gonna probably say that later on in the video, but I just thought it was strange that the pinball played the way it did, because the first time I did it on stream, it was like, okay, it wasn't terrible. Like, yeah, I failed once, but second time I was cautious and it worked out fine. My second playthrough though was a completely different story. There were so many times where the bumper by the frame where the pinball would go down so you could hit it with your bumpers, it kept bumping back and forth between those two, and then there was more likely than not to go out. There was enough of a gap to just push it out underneath where I needed it to go to actually continue playing pinball, and it was like I had no control over that happening, and it just kept happening over and over and over again. I probably played pinball like 5 or 6 times the second playthrough, which was so frustrating that it was just like, why am I wasting so much time on this minigame when I could just be done with it and be on the boss, or even on like the 4th area by now. It was just crazy. I don't understand that it had to be like that. Otherwise, it was a welcome game to play because they put pinball into Sonic before, and it was better back then. I don't know how they can just make it so difficult for no reason. Now on to my next point. Why am I able to uncover the whole entirety of Kronos Island and Ares Island without having anything be locked behind story progression, right? But once I hit Chaos Island and the final island, it's like I have to do story to even uncover the whole map. Fast traveling is locked behind uncovering the map, and fishing for the 2 upgrades via the Cocoa upgrade. So if the only reason for that was to encourage exploration and prolong the game, then it barely did a good job of it. Anyway, there's no reason that I can't uncover the uncover where I'm going and then enjoy the story. It shouldn't be locked when I can clearly see the challenges on the map where you won't allow me to go. Why mark it on the map if I can't get it? I understand having the ones that are story progression that say like, oh, there's a lock on it. The ones that don't have a lock on it and you can't get to it, why? Why can't I be able to fast travel and explore the game the way I want to explore it, whether that be zipping and doing it as quickly as possible or running around myself? It shouldn't be you're hard locked into playing the game the way they want you to play it. It's just the freedom for the player to do what they want. Yeah, it's an open zone game, right? So it should be open to do what we want within the confines of the zone, not locked behind story progression. I think it's stupid. I mean, even like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 had something like that, where it's like some things were just left to post game because you had to wait for something to happen in the end game to affect the map around you. And it's like, they don't tell you that, so it's like, how are you supposed to know that? I mean, I'm all in favor for post game content. So I mean, I didn't really care because it gave me something to do post game in the context of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But like, this is a Sonic review, so like for Sonic, there is no post game. It's just here. Why are you prohibiting me from progressing and playing the game how I want to play it? I don't get that. Yeah, I mean, you might not agree with that, but it's whatever. And now we're going to talk about the upgrading system. The upgrade system is half good, half bad. Like I said earlier, I do not understand why we can upgrade the power and defense at the same time through Hermit Cocoa. Easiest upgrade system ever. Beautiful. Like, you give him the stuff, he upgrades it. He's like, you want me to change any of your stuff with ring capacity and speed, and then that's it, and you can get out of it. Perfect. Beautiful. I love it. It's fantastic. But Elder Cocoa, I don't know if they like were in development, right? And they were like, hey, we got Elder Cocoa, let's do it like this. Later in development, they were like, oh, that's a bad idea. Let's make this one like this instead. And it's like, but we're too far along. We're just not even gonna fix Elder Cocoa. And it's like, what? You don't tell me how many Cocoa I need to upgrade my ring capacity or my speed. They never tell you. The only way you can even know how many Cocoa you have is if you look in the menu or if you're in the fishing and it shows you on the bar when you're buying stuff. And it just blows my mind. You can only upgrade, and you can't even skip the scene. You only upgrade one level at a time, and you cannot skip the scene. And I mean, it's not like it's a cutscene or whatever, but it's so frustrating, right? Like, why are we doing this like this? Like, why is one so fast and so efficient, and why is the other one so slow and mundane? I remember last stream going from level 31 to 99 in both ring capacity and speed. I leveled up 69 times twice, and just went back and forth between speed, and it took me like 45 minutes, like 30 to 45 minutes. Like, I wasted like an hour just leveling up. I ran up to Hermit Cocoa and I literally maxed out my power and defense like that. Like, what the heck is going on? Like, who thought that was a good idea? Oh, man. But that's like, it's not bad, but it's not good. Like, it just makes the game longer unnecessarily. That's my next point, actually. It's the time. Time is not also on Sonic's side, because this is supposed to be a AAA game, right? I'm not sure most people who consider themselves game developers who are AAA like thought that this was even like a AAA game. I really felt like an indie studio or something, because the first time I played it, like, I finished it over in a little, like, 22 hours, and like I said before, like, my second playthrough, I finished the game in less than 15. For a Sonic entry not to be like at least 30 to 40 hours and be a AAA experience, because that's, like, Sega is a third-party developer, but like Sonic is usually a AAA experience. You get a lot of time out of playing Sonic. I didn't feel that way with this game. I felt wanting to play more because there was nothing left to do. And that's why, yes, Island 4 was cool with the puzzles and how you scaled the towers each time, but I hated the fact that there was nothing else to do. You literally just got the backstory and lore, and that was it. And then you moved on to the last thing, which was the same as the first. And that's fine for it to be like almost the same, but like, and there was different bosses and stuff and more story and different characters focused on and everything. That fourth island was like a waste. Like, you could have just given us that backstory at any other point. Like, you didn't have to chew it in there and that be the only thing. I mean, I wanted the game to be longer. That's probably why I even wanted to play the game a second time, because I was just like, I have to play this again. I have to play this again because yes, it's fun and I want to play the boss fights again, but like, I just didn't feel like there was enough put into the game. Because yeah, you're flying around so much and everything. It's just, I understand that. I just felt like there could have been more to do, so I could have played the game longer instead of beating it in 4 days. Just beating it in 4 days was okay. Let me take another 4 days to beat it again. And I don't know why the game just ended. Don't get this confused. I didn't just beat the game to beat the game, because it probably could have took even less time. Both times I 100%ed the game, and to 100% a game in 15 hours, that game has to be super short. And for Sonic, like, knowing what you're doing and everything, especially this time, I mean, it's only like a 6-7 hour difference if you like know what you're doing. I can't tell you how many times I messed up simple stuff the first time through. That second time, oh, you best believe, like, I even though I was messing up some things, I wasn't messing up everything, which is why I'm just like, I don't get it. I mean, they could have even added a post-game thing or something, but I don't know like what they were thinking with that. I mean, it's not bad. I just wish there was more exploration on that fourth island, because that fourth island was really like, it was literally they called it Rhea Island, but it was Kronos Island. Like, it showed the Kronos Island map, and it was Kronos Island. You could see Kronos Island in the front because one of the towers was actually where you fought the boss. So I don't even know why they called that a different island. I'm just flabbergasted. You know, it's like, what's going on? Man, it's just, there also should have been a boss rush mode. I'm just gonna throw that out there, because upon a completion, there's an arcade mode with all the cyberspace levels, but they should have had a boss rush mode, so I didn't have to play it later. I could just play the cool stuff that I really wanted to play again. But I mean, I also play the game in Japanese because I'm also trying to learn Japanese, but that's a topic for a different day. Here are a little bit more gripes about Sonic, because man, we ain't done yet. We ain't done yet. Okay, there are map challenges exclusive to nighttime, the most frustrating part. And if it's daytime, you might as well forget about doing them and find something else to do, because you cannot change the time of day for the life of you. Like, what kind of game in 2022 doesn't allow you to change the time of day, especially if they're gonna hard lock something behind the time of day being at a certain thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, why do that to the player? I want to finish the whole, like, getting the fast travel. I want to finish the map. I'm sitting at this challenge and I'm waiting and waiting and waiting for the sun to go down, and I'm also streaming it, so I'm trying to make this enjoyable for my viewer, and I'm just literally waiting, and I'm just like, this blows. Like, how is this fun? They should have added a way to change the time of day, but they didn't. Also, when in a boss fight, or any fight for that matter, you cannot save your game or load a save if you are having a hard time. So like my first stream, like I'll mention again, I went to the first boss thinking that it was an easy, and like I was gonna be able to do it. Like, even if I was gonna struggle a little bit, I thought I was strong enough to do it. That wasn't the case. I wanted to go back. I wanted to reload my save from where I was and just continue, so I didn't have to go all the way back to the start menu and wonder if I lost progress, because I had no idea how it worked at the time. So I tried doing it and it wouldn't let me. So I'm just like, okay, well, crap, I'm stuck here. I have to beat him. I'm gonna just have to figure something out. And it made me like think, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep trying until I get it, whatever. And like, I thought it was stupid then. I still think it's stupid now, but probably the only reason why I actually like 100%ed Sonic on stream, I felt like I had to do it. I mean, I wanted to do it, but I felt like I needed to even be strong enough to fight the bosses. So after like 8 times, I realized, okay, I'm just gonna have to quit and see what happens. Thankfully, like, you don't lose any of your progress. It just takes you back to the last autosave thing. So that's why I always encourage players to, in any game really, to save early and often as much as you can, just so you know that if something does happen, like an anomaly, you don't have to redo so much of your progress. Because autosaves don't necessarily like bring you to where you need to be, like, or where you were, or where you wish to be, like when you lose all that progress. So it's just a good thing to do. So It's definitely another thing. Like, I don't know why the design was like that, but I like, at this point, I want to bring up Donkey's video on Sonic Front. I agree with Donkey on everything that he said, especially that forest that Donkey ran in that said, "You are not ready to go this way," be like, or "You veer off the path," or whatever that she said. So stupid. They don't tell you that's where the final boss fight is. I'm literally just going to the point where I need to go. And you're saying I can't cut through something that is called open zone. There's no story progression or anything blocking it. It's literally just a forest. And people on Twitter were defending this crap. Oh yeah, well, let me compare it to Super Mario 64. Like, they have things locked behind to pay like a progression, and it's like, this forest had nothing to do with that. There was no progression needed to go through there, because all you're trying to do is pass through to go to the point on the map. You're not trying to like subvert the game or whatever. It's so stupid that people think, oh well, that's all crap. Like, it's perfectly fine that they did it. There are problems with it, and you can't just be like, just because we got something good doesn't mean that there aren't any faults with it. So I don't get why people do that, but it's just lazy on Sonic Team's part. There's no reason for that, and I'm not going to defend Sonic Team for crap design. Another thing that they need to like kill and lay to rest, I mean, I understand Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone are Sonic staples, and I just felt like the cyber levels didn't need to be Green Hill and Chemical Plant Zone based all the time. I mean, I understand Green Hill is where Sonic's from, and it's called Green Hill, blah 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 blah. That's fine, but like, we don't need this game after game. You know, we want something new. We don't want just the old aesthetic all the time. We want something new, something that like makes it feel like we're playing something different, not just, oh well, here we go with another Green Hill and Sonic game. Be like, I don't care about Green Hill anymore. I want something new. I want something interesting, you know. I want something that really gives Sonic a new place to explore. I mean, you want to connect all these Sonic games, right? And that's cool. I want to do that too. But take Sonic Unleashed, take Sonic Lost World. I mean, Sonic Lost World did have like a Green Hill aesthetic thing, but it wasn't Green Hill. And I also want to mention that Nintendo did not develop Sonic Lost World, okay? People don't know that either. I mean, they had like a little hand in it, but like not like a big hand in it. They just had a deal with Sega to publish the games. Like, I don't understand people like understanding that either. It just blows my mind. But we don't need to always see that stuff. We want something new. We want something interesting, a new land to explore, a new course to run through, not just the same stuff. And that's also where Sonic Mania even falls short, because they rehashed classic Sonic 2D courses. The best part about the Sonic Mania was the new stuff, not the old stuff, the new stuff. And we don't need to be force-fed and like drowned in Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant Zone. Sky Sanctuary, they barely ever use it, so it's like, I'm not gonna really be upset about Sky Sanctuary. I'll be completely transparent about that. But like, the new city cyberspace level was great. It was a new aesthetic. We never really saw it that much, besides in Eggman cutscenes and the last island, because you're dealing with Sage and not Sonic's friends. I just don't know what they were thinking. I understand the constraints of recreating levels for cyberspace, but having a new look instead of classic Sonic aesthetics would have been more interesting. A lot of the time I found myself saying, oh wow, this course is from this game, or Sonic Adventure 2, but it looks like Green Hill. I don't care. Give me that Sonic Adventure 2 aesthetic. I understand like it would have been more manpower and everything. Some of those courses were super short. They could have just came up with a better theme, especially if it was like, oh yeah, this world's this theme, the next world's this theme. Make it simpler, but whatever. Now, I don't know if I covered all the bad points, but the last thing I want to talk about are the last two Sonic boss fights and the Galaga minigame. Man, which the Galaga minigame, if you don't know, it's when you're on one side and you're like a triangle in a spacecraft and you're shooting the beams and the enemies across from you to hack into the system in Sonic Frontiers. I got a bone to pick with that. But first, we're going to talk about the last two bosses. And Sonic gets really overpowered after talking to Tails on the third island. That, like, you get the last ability, and it's the most OP ability. Like, if you use that ability, you're winning every single fight, regardless if you have no rings. Like, you just use that move, Sonic does this little, like, key blast thing, and you win the fight. It's so powerful. Like, even on hard mode, it's that easy and quick to fight the boss at at the end. It's actually laughable that they even consider it hard mode at that point. And if you don't play on hard mode, then you also miss out on the true final boss, which is called the end. The end was disappointing. All this build up thinking you're gonna have an epic space battle, maybe like Sonic Adventure 2, but with new combat elements, and nope, that isn't the case at all. Like, you have another Galaga minigame to fight. In the last island alone, you have to hack into the system twice, and then you get to the true final boss just for it to be the same thing. It was so overdone at this point that I really made the game fall flat, in my opinion, in terms of, oh yeah, this is fun. I will say the cutscenes, the quick time event saved it, with Sonic streaking across space, but overall it should have been different. The last Titan should have had more health, and the end should have had a better fight, where we had an epic fight with a new combat that took at least 5 to 10 minutes to complete, with more than just 2 phases for the fight. The Titans having sponges for health. These fights were, like, presentation-wise, amazing. Music, incredible. Mechanics, they were all different and unique, and it was just felt, wow, Sonic is back. But then you get used to this stuff, you get good at the stuff, and then you're like, wow, it's too short, it's too quick, it needs to be longer, it's not there. It has been said by the time this video comes out that Sega is trying to make a staple for how Sonic games are going to move going forward, just like how Zelda. So it's exciting to see like the next take on Sonic. I mean, from the way they were talking, we might even have a Tails spin-off, like I said earlier, but hey, we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, now we're going to move on to, so, should you play Sonic Frontiers? Now, I'm going to keep this point simple and sweet because I've been chalking your ear off for a while, but if you're a Sonic fan, you'll like the game enough to be like, hey, Sonic Team is heading in the right direction. Yes, the game has its flaws, but it's still your average Sonic game that we've been playing all this time, and it's fun, and the music's great like it's always been, and the mechanics are like decent enough to play the game, you know, and have a good time with it. So I would encourage you to get this game for a sale, not get it for $60, because this game is not worth $60. $30 at best. I've been seeing it for $41 for all these, like even like a week after the game came out, I saw this game down for like $40 some. It might stay there. I mean, $40 I guess is a good deal, but I'd say wait like a year maybe. Like get it for dirt cheap, because that's what Sega does with Sonic, because they don't manage them that well, at least in the game space. Also, look on the bright side, there's a possibility for a Tails spin-off game opportunity as well. And if you're new to Sonic, either a new fan from playing the games or from liking the movies, I would lean on towards the positives of the game if you just want to have some fun running around and being like, wow, this is Sonic. I would also go back and play other Sonic games that they're not really that bad. Like, they all have their problems, and a lot of people don't like them, but you could probably find them for a good deal. I mean, I would definitely play like Sonic Unleashed and just have fun with the music, have fun with the cyberspace levels, and enjoy it, and don't be so critical about it. You don't have to be so critical about it. That's what my job is, to be a realist, to be critical of the subject matter. And I would say that the 6 or 7 out of 10 rating I gave the game in my last Sonic Frontiers video, in the story when the credits were rolling, is a fair rating. I mean, it's my opinion. It's good. It has a lot of bad if you want to nitpick it, but it also has a lot of good, and those good things are keeping it at the 6 or 7. If the music sucked and the gameplay wasn't that good, or not good, but if the aesthetic and the presentation wasn't as good and the supersonic boss fights weren't there, this game would easily be a 3 or 4 or even lower if they didn't do it right. So the positives of the games are keeping it at the rating that I gave it, and I'm not going to appease people and overlook these problems. Like I said earlier, just because we got something good does not mean that we can neglect everything else. We have to be unbiased in a way. I mean, I am biased a little bit, but I'm not going to like just rip Sonic apart and be like, I hate Sonic, I hate everything about it, all his games suck. I enjoy his games for the most part, and that's why I played the game twice. I mean, it's a good game, I just wish it was longer. I mean, this is why this is your typical Sonic game in an open world type setting, open zone, if you want to call it that, because that's how Sega calls it that. So with that, I'm gonna leave the video there, and let me know down below what you think of Sonic Frontiers, and make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more from me, OneHpTom, in the future. Thanks for watching.